you everyone for coming in early as well. Marcus, Ashley, Chief Kai, Ken Singh, Oscar, Clifford, Ellen. So yeah, Marshall will handle the pre-show portion. We'll kick off at 8:30 sharp in a bit.
Yeah, even though you say I'm the one handling the pre-show portion, but I also hope that Stephen, you can also join the conversation, because I was thinking that the conversation we had last week was actually quite interesting, which is property investment. So I would like to bring, since this is a pre-show portion, I would like to ask May your opinion on investing in properties. Do you have any? Hello, May.
Yes, sorry, I missed my internet kind of died. I heard my name and then I didn't hear your question.
Right. No, actually, last week we were talking about property investment, right? So since today this is just the pre-show portion, we'd like to understand where you're coming from when it comes to investing in properties, because later on we'll be talking about other types of investments, right? So why not we talk a little bit about properties before the show?
Right. I'm a little bit of a bear in terms of properties. It's not on my personal radar at this point in time, just because of, I think it's very expensive for where we are currently, and I do feel like there is it's a bit of a buyer's market, I would say.
Why do you mean buyers?
No, buyer as in
buyer's market. Right.
Buyer, not BI.
Okay.
It's not a seller's market. Yeah. No, I just think it's a there's too much supply at this point in time, especially economy, and I do feel like prices will future.
Right.
So that's what I'm waiting for personally. I mean, to be fully transparent, I do not have any exposure in properties, and I don't intend to, at least not in the next, I would say, 2 to 3 years. So I am personally taking my time with that. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Cool. So, Stephen, any thoughts on properties after the show last week?
Well, it was definitely insightful. Overall, I think prices haven't quite bottomed out yet, but I would agree that it's really about looking at what opportunities out there. And although I told them not to say that, you can't say when's the best time to buy, but really it's about looking what opportunities out there. I am actually looking for another property for own stay, even though if you're talking about investment side, I have a little bit over exposure currently still in property, so I'm still trimming that a little bit as well. Yeah.
When you say you're looking for a property for own stay, are you currently renting, or are you staying in one of your properties and you may decide to treat it as an investment property in the future?
Right. So what's actually happening is that I moved from Penang to KL for quite a while back. I did buy another property, but more for investment purposes. But yeah, I was taking a time to just look around before deciding on what to buy really. Yeah. I do have one other question though, and since we have a bit of time actually, although it's 8:30, I actually do have a question about how are you guys feeling this evening? Really, sort of like a soft intro before we jump right into it.
Did I started off a bit too strong? Yeah, I'm good. How about you, May?
I'm feeling well, thanks. I mean, it's it's 8:30. It was a long work day, but it's fun time now, so I'm feeling great. Thanks for asking. How are you, Stephen?
Sure. Thanks for asking us all that, May. I'm feeling pretty relaxed right now, so I actually took about half a day off. So it's good because the earlier part of the week, from Monday to Wednesday, it's been crazy. I've been clocking in more than 10 hours of work every day from Monday to Wednesday. This is actually the 4th session that I'm actually talking this week. So on earlier in the week, I had a session with Casey Lau. So I was doing a webinar with him where he was interviewing me and Shahira, another licensed financial planner. Yesterday, I was actually doing a chit chat with actually recent graduates, from certified financial planners. Ken Singh was in the audience as well. He was also there. So we were having a chat with all the new CFP graduates who are the prospects in the financial planning industry. And earlier today, this afternoon, I was actually giving a talk for AXA General Insurance. They asked me to talk about scams and how to avoid scams and scheme Cepat Kaya. So yeah, I've been doing quite a bit of talking. Thankfully, my throat, I think, is holding up. So yeah, thanks for asking.
Interesting. All right. So are we waiting for anyone else? Is Idam joining us?
Yeah, Idam should be joining us, but no worries. It's 8:30. We usually start from on time, but just an update as well. So Roshan unfortunately got a little bit of migraine, so he's not sure whether he'll be joining us this evening. But yeah, like May and Marshall feels, yeah, let's have an awesome conversation still this evening. So let's get started, shall we?
Yep, sure.
Alright, hey y'all, thank you all so much for joining us this evening. I'm Steve, I'm the founder of MyPF, Malaysia's leading personal finance education portal. So last year we had over 1 million visitors and a top 1,000 sites in Malaysia. And this is the My Personal Finances Clubhouse meeting. It's our 6th meeting, so we meet every Thursday at 8:30 p.m. And our topic for today is the psychology of money and investing. So just a little bit of our format this evening. So our format will be covering just 3 questions of 15 minutes each, where we'll be covering what is investor psychology and what influences it. We'll also be covering the most important lessons learned about psychology of money and investing. And we'll also see how do you apply psychology positively in personal finances and investing. As we only have 60 minutes, so let's make full use of our time. So let's be concise, avoid rambling, and let's have an awesome session indeed. So with that, we'll call on May to just introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, good evening. My name is May. Just a little bit of background myself. So I'm currently leading the CX team at StashAway. So if
Customer experience.
correct, the client experience team at StashAway. So we're a robo-advisor. We're the biggest digital robo-advisor in the region. We launched in Singapore. Currently we're present in Malaysia, Dubai, and later this year we'll be launching in Hong Kong and Thailand. So it's exciting times for us. So prior to this, I spent 7 years in Maybank Investment Bank. So I was on the broking side, dealing mainly with equity. So that's just a little bit of my background.
Alright, thanks for that, May. And Giant, I see you're in. I also noticed your profile picture is changed, although still wearing shades, probably to hide your laser eyes. We'll give you a moment to settle in. We're just doing introductions. Marshall, you want to do a brief intro of yourself?
Yeah, sure. This is Marshall, licensed financial planner with FA Advisory, and I run a blog called planet.io. Right. So yeah, back to you, Stephen. Oh yeah, by the way, if you guys have any questions any questions or comments, do feel free to raise your hand, because I'm the designated floor manager for tonight. And yeah, just raise your hand, I'll pull you up on stage. Back to you, Stephen.
Alright, yes, Marshall's our floor manager. Don't be shy, he doesn't bite, although he seems to be chewing something in that cute picture of his. Over to you, Giant. You introduce yourself briefly.
Thanks, Steve. Good evening, everyone. I'm Idam. I'm a co-founder of Vantage Advisory and a licensed financial planner. I have over 18 years experience in the financial services industry. Interesting topic tonight. Hopefully we can do a for lack of a better term, deep dive into the topic. Yeah. So back to you, Steve.
Alright, deep dive, there's a term, I quite often hear from StashAway, so yeah, let's do some deep diving this evening as well. And with that, we're just right on time as we head into our first question. What is investor psychology and what influences investor psychology? May, you want to start us off with this?
Sure. So generally based on what I understand investor psychology to be, it's mostly investor emotions, and that essentially can fall on the spectrum is very wide, right? So it can either be,
they buy our oil and they give us weapons.
Involve fear and greed, or it can be at the other end of the spectrum, which is literally someone with zero feelings whatsoever, as in they're completely numb. to anything that happens in the market. If they lose money, they're fine. If they make money, they're also, essentially they seem emotionless. So that's not the best. So it's, at the end of the day, it's how can we find a healthy middle ground. In terms of what affects and what influences investor psychology, I think there are a lot of factors. The first thing can be internally, if you start comparing yourself to other people. And then that's when you start to get greedy, right? Why is my friend making a lot more money than me when we're both in the market at the same time?
The FOMO is real, right? Yeah.
Correct. The FOMO is real. I mean, I think we saw that quite recently with GameStop and with Bitcoin. I mean, everyone is just jumping on the train. Now we have NFTs, honestly, it's endless. The list is endless, so it can also be external, which is essentially the whole FOMO feeling. When you have FOMO, that also leads to you making irrational decisions, and you start, going into things blindly. You start investing money and start having really ridiculous expectations, and that's when it really, really affects an individual. Yeah.
I really like what you share about balance there, May, as well. And Giant, you've had countless years of experience really in the financial planning side. So what have you seen as you look at clients, as been working with clients about investor psychology and what influences them?
Yeah, I think for me, over time, I'm not a trained psychologist or behavioral finance background, but it was something
I don't think any one of us are, although I'm married to one though, so
oh, that's cool. Okay,
Why isn't she here?
All right. Okay, so I think early on, one of the things that I've always noticed whenever I'm talking about investments with clients, very early on, I noticed it's that the herd mentality. It's like following what everybody else is doing. Like if someone else is doing that particular thing, then people will just pile on because everybody's doing it. That means you must be doing it too, regardless whether it's good for you or not, or whether it aligns with your financial goals or not. It's just because that other people are doing it. So is that FOMO? Maybe. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. So I think that is the normal one where sometimes even when you try to talk them out of making, you can just see it's a bad decision. Yeah, it's a get rich quick scheme. It's a scam. It's something that is too. It's like way outside their risk profile. But because that they just want to follow what other people are doing, then they do it. So I think it also goes to when they're selling. So it's not just when they want to go investing or things like that. It's on the selling side also, like making decisions because everybody's selling. Everybody's selling, and I must get out also. So is that FOMO? I don't think so, right? Because FOMO is usually because you're afraid of missing out, then you want to go in. But this is about getting out, So, so yeah, that's. And another thing that I see is something what is called, I think, sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah, sunken cost. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, where they just the investment is gonna go back up, it is a good prospect, and then they start to ask their friends, and their friends will also say, yeah, I'm in it also, don't worry, let's hold together, and then they hold until the company PN17 and they don't get their money back. So yeah, more on my observations, these are the two big ones that I usually see.
Sure, and it's really not easy, having a contrarian viewpoint as well. Even when things seem to be really a scam as well. Even today, I actually just heard news that there was basically a crypto scam, which was actually turned out to be a Ponzi scheme, and yet the people have lost millions in it. Yet there are some people who are still trying to defend the company because of their stake in it as well. Yeah. With that, May, do you have a quick thought really, because Giant also mentioned about people following the crowd, and I know that in robo advisories, I believe even StashAway as well, there has been a little bit of sell-off for certain people actually in the months of March, April, as we saw maybe what could be described as the taper tantrum actually, which has been affecting portfolio returns. Any thoughts on that, May?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's what your ultimate goal is as an investor, right? So the whole robo advisory and all the slew of products, it exists because essentially we want to help people take their mind off the markets. If you're someone who works a very busy 9 to 5 job, you don't really have time to sit down in front of your computer and watch the markets, then it's you have to trust that the people helping you are really there to help you. Obviously, if you are of the decision, if you are a short-term person, then maybe robo-advisory is not the place for you, to be completely frank. Not just robo-advisory, but just in any sort of long-term investing, because even if you go direct into ETFs yourself, you still run the risk of having exposure to what Stephen, you just mentioned, the whole tapering that's going on, how tech is so wildly affected by what has happened in the last couple of weeks. So honestly, it's at the end of the day, it's entirely up to an individual and what fits their personal comfort level. If you're someone who's willing to sit and withstand the volatility, then I don't think you have anything to worry about. But obviously, if you want quick money, no one should stop you either. It's entirely up to you, because at the end of the day, you control your own decisions and you control your own finances. But yeah, I think that's just my 5 cents.
Right. I think that's so true as well. I was listening to Freddie the other way as well. I think it comes up a lot. Investors ask StashAway, is StashAway gonna have some funds into robo advisories or disruptive innovation? And basically Freddie said that StashAway is diversified enough, but at the same time, there's no harm. If you believe in that, you have done enough due diligence, and you want to put in a little bit into certain other asset classes, hey, sure, why not as well? I do actually want to delve a little bit deeper as well. So personally for you, with your background, so how has your own investor psychology changed over time? Because from your years in banking and then moving into fintech with StashAway, how has your own investor psychology changed?
So I learned very early on the importance of not making rash decisions. I think I was, I don't want to call it lucky, but I was fortunate to be able to, this is gonna sound really, really bad, but I was,
I will try not to judge.
Yeah, I was fortunate to see things happen, but not to my money. I'm really sorry if this sounds like horrible, but in that sense where I entered the industry very, very young, so I learned hard lessons very, very young, and I saw things happen. I saw things happen to other people, and I realized that that's not what I want for myself. So very early on, I realized that it's very important, especially when it comes to money, to never make rash decisions. When it comes down to it, if I want to buy something, I always make sure that I know what I'm getting myself into, and also the importance of having good financial habits. So I refrain from I live on the markets. I really, really enjoy reading about the markets and about finance. But I try to not listen to the noise and make sure I make sound judgment by myself. If I'm getting into something where I feel that I will not be able to sleep well at night, then I would usually avoid it. And also sometimes if I have to ask other people what their opinions are about certain things, then maybe it's not personally for me. So yeah, that's just the kind of path that I've taken for myself just to stay sane.
Right. I definitely agree. Actually, it's something that I say pretty often as well to clients. Is how do you feel at night? Can you sleep about it, and it's so true. There's just so much noise, so much news actually going out there, and I think it's totally fine, really, to learn from others' experiences. Like, you don't have to bang your head on the wall, or sometimes it might be just making smaller quantum of mistakes that kind of set you up. Like, for example, early on in my life, when I just started working, actually I lost about 30,000 ringgit in a scam, and which was a large amount at that time. But because of that, I'm way more careful now as well, and spend a lot more time on due diligence and making sure things are right, after the lesson that was learned as well. I do have a question for Marshall as well. So Marshall, you write about various personal finance topics on your Planet blog. Share with us what you have learned on investor psychology.
Frankly speaking, I haven't really thought about investor psychology, but then I realized that every decision that we make is actually some sort of psychology. There is some sort of psychological element into it. So I kind of like how May described it earlier, whereby there is an internal factor and also an external factor that actually influences the psychology of investing. Just now we have talked, Idam has actually talked a lot about FOMO, right? Following the blind, blind leading the blind. All these kind of things are all external, but the thing is, we have to start with internal. Where are you going when it comes to investing? A lot, because maybe I need to have a disclaimer here. I don't really work with a lot of more senior people. I work with a lot of young professionals. So when I work with young professionals, a lot of them, when they say they want to make money, they want to get returns from their investment. And when I ask them further, they'll say, "Oh, why do you want to make this money?" Then the common answer is like, got people say money too much, right? So this kind of response is actually you really need to think about what is money actually. Is money just a tool, or is money an indication of success? So if you don't really have a plan, you don't really have the internal benchmark, or how they call a yardstick, it's easy to be influenced by social media, investment, even blogs, even financial bloggers that's writing about investment, because everyone's investment perspective or everyone's financial position is actually very, very different. So it may not be applicable to you. Let's say if this person is actually you think that he's actually very successful, but you have no idea what he have actually went through, and what is his current financial position right now, especially when it comes to is there a buffer? If let's say this person is investing this X amount of money, how much buffer does he have? So it all comes down to your internal planning, and also your own objective. That's how I look at the psychology of investing.
All right, thanks for sharing thoughts. And an interesting thought as well is that does age actually affect investor psychology as well? So while we mull on that thoughts, before maybe Marshall, do you want to reset the room a little bit and ask if anyone wants to join us?
Yeah. Hi everyone. This is Marshall, and Today is the 6th session of MyPF weekly money talk, and we are talking about the psychology of money and also on the psychology on investing. So there will be a few sections. So for those of you who would like to share something, probably share your experience on your psychology on investment, or perhaps you have questions for anyone here on the stage, do feel free to raise your hand and I'll bring you up on stage. With that, I'll pass the session back to Stephen.
All right, thanks, Marshall. And before we move on to the next question, so just quick thought that was spun. Does age affect the psychology of an investor? Giant or May, any thoughts?
I'll go ahead. Actually, no. I don't see it that way. I mean, maybe people might say that older people tend to be more conservative, or younger people tend to be more aggressive. But in truth, I've seen the opposite. Someone who's older or recently retired might be chasing for higher returns because they want to get enough for their retirement income, and someone who's quite young who's not familiar with investing, so they tend to be very, very conservative. I've seen younger people have like tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands in the savings account, not even in a FD or
savings account. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I recently handled one client who had like 200,000, and he was in his late 20s in a savings account, and I asked him why, because he said he was fearful. He wasn't sure on what to do with the money, and he's very scared in terms of investing into different things that he has no idea on how to do so, and he's afraid he's going to lose money. So yeah, I think age is not a factor to me based on my experience.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for your thoughts, May.
Yeah, I actually agree with Idam. I don't think I don't think it has anything to do with age. At the end of the day, is education, right? If you're young and you've been exposed, you understand the risks of certain things. If you've seen your parents, doing things in a more maybe conservative manner, and that's just how you're just ingrained to do. And then as you grow older, that will just essentially be your habit.
That's true. That's true.
Obviously, as you then grow to be a more sophisticated investor, when you understand more things, maybe when you've accumulated some sort of wealth in your 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever the case may be, then you'll be more open to taking more risks. And then that's when you see people, at this age understanding, okay, I have this X amount that I'm willing to lose. Let me just put it all in Bitcoin or something like that. And then obviously that is on the spectrum of risk, that's probably one of the higher risk ones, right? So I don't think it's so much with age. I think at the end of the day is an individual's comfort level, how self-aware an individual is, and what that particular individual understands.
Definitely, and with the circle of competency as well. I know some content creators, some in the audience as well, are very heavily weighted into certain individual holdings or asset classes as well. With that, let's move on to the second question for this evening. What are the most important lessons you have learned about the psychology of money and investing? So maybe just to start us off, so there was actually an excellent book that I would highly recommend. It's actually, the title of the book is The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, which actually today's topic drew inspiration from. Roshan, I know, has actually read the book. Unfortunately, he can't be with us today. Otherwise, we could have delved a little bit into that book as well, which was recommended by our mutual friend Aaron Tang, aka Mr. Sinji. But one of the highlights of the book that really hit me as well is that our own experiences about money, and I think applies for investing and savings or anything really to do with money. Our experiences of money are probably only like 0.00008% of what everyone else experiences. But because of that experience, because it's your own personal experience, that it actually forms about 80% of the basis of what you believe about money. So it really goes to show how everyone really views and looks at money through really totally different lenses as well. Yeah. So May, what are the most important lessons you have learned about the psychology of money and investing?
I think the number one rule that I've learned is that you should never be greedy. It goes for everything, right? It's the importance of self-discipline. At the end of the day, what is meant to be yours will be yours. That's really no point chasing what seems to be the inevitable, and there's no point really setting such a high bar of expectations, especially when it comes to investing. This is a personal opinion, obviously, and also at the end of the day, I don't think there is a set formula, as you mentioned.
Before we continue on, May, what would you define as a high bar actually? Do you have an example of that?
So, I mean, maybe I didn't articulate it properly, but okay, for example, if in the last couple of months you are someone who had exposed yourself to the whole GameStop run up, and then, if that was your first investing experience, and then if that's something that you're used to, then that could potentially be the bar that you're set for all your future gains.
That's probably a very screwed up view, but okay, sure.
You know what I mean, right? So essentially, if that was your first, if that's your first experience, and then you made, say, 100%, and then moving forward, whenever you invest in the market, that could potentially just be what you want. So every time you invest in something, you're just expecting 100%. So you could be 20% up, but then you're just telling yourself, no, I mean, I've made 100% before. It's not impossible, so I'm just going to stay. And then the next day, the market kind of takes a swing in the opposite direction, and you move and you lose, essentially more than, or if you're leveraged, unfortunately, you lose more than your capital. But if you're not, then you just lose a lot more than what you were actually prepared to lose. So it's I don't know if that's the right sort of example.
It's a good example.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, me.
Yeah, it's just, the expectations. You have to really be disciplined in a sense where, okay, at say 10-15%, I'm good. It's time to maybe exit and move on to something else. You're down 10 to 15%. Okay, that's okay. It's time to exit and then move on to something else. But I think at the end of the day, there is also no set formula. I don't think it's a one size fits all. What works for me does not necessarily work for someone else. So never compare yourself to anyone else. It's really just finding your own pattern, finding your own strategy, and then kind of working around it as time passes.
I really like what you're saying, May, about finding your own strategy or your own path. I just get a feeling like total money zen actually while you were saying that as well. A giant though, as a financial planner, how does what you have learned actually about money and investing psychology, does that help you and your financial planning clients?
So I think early on when I was so I started out not as a financial planner. I started out as a unit trust consultant. So I think when in the realm of selling unit trust products, sometimes you're biased towards your own the products that you can sell, and perhaps even to the point of truly believing in the potential of the product, and sometimes you may ignore like warning signs where certain objectives in the next 2 to 3 years is not a viable strategy. So it's more about talking to clients and talking in terms of feeling. We feel that this will perform well, rather than based on educated, strategic, not guesswork, but basically more on a strategic level, and having.
It's like what your feelings, your emotions get involved.
Correct. So you're talking to clients and trying to advise clients based on your own feelings and emotions and your belief on the product. So that's actually like not the right way to do it. Yeah, because at the end of the day, you have to understand what the client risk profile is. You have to work at their comfort level and what their financial needs and financial goals are, and from there, construct the right portfolio or the right asset allocation that matches those goals and needs. So it has nothing to do with how you feel about particular or where it's going to go. Oh, we feel that the Asian market is going to do well in the next 5 years, and then you impose that on your clients. So I felt like I think it took me quite a while to like match that understanding. Oh, it's not what I think the product can do, it's what they want and how I can help them to achieve what they want using whatever tool set that I have. So
that's the whole paradigm shift there, isn't it?
Yeah, correct. So it's not so much about my feelings. So the when when you're talking about making strategic investment plans using the right asset allocation, that's where you actually step away from being emotional or being attached to behavior or being focused too much on feelings and things like that. Yeah, I always say that at a certain point it sort of becomes boring and very technical and clinical, but it does help you to detach from making those maybe financial mistakes, I can say, that is dependent on those feelings, the herd mentality, that sunken cost fallacy, that May was saying just now, where you just set a high bar for yourself, saying that, wow, last year I invest like mad and I made 60 or 70%, disregarding that everything else actually went up, so you then say, okay, moving forward, that's how investing is. I'm going to make 50-60% every year. So yeah, it's I think that is once I have a clearer understanding on that, it becomes very easy to actually discuss and talk and make client aware on their current risk profile or their current understanding or their psychological investing level, because some investors, some of them are very fearful. So you need to understand, okay, what's your concern? What are some of the things that you want to achieve? Can we do it safely? All these things it needs to be taken. Or somebody who's very aggressive, who really want to go all out, what are some of the ways that we can help them achieve what they want in the manner that they want to do it. So without going into too much feelings and emotions and things like that. So yeah, that's what I think.
Sure, totally, and it doesn't have to shape all experiences. Just now May mentioned about certain experiences, I just happened to glance at my portfolio as well, and I've had stocks that have been went up 500%. So I can't be really taking that as the bar. All my investments are actually gonna be performing that way. In fact, I totally agree with you, Giant, there, that as you go in and as you actually look at investments as an investor, before you even start investing, really, it's really just to take stock where you are now. What are the various asset classes, how are you diversifying, what sort of risk level, what sort of entry exit strategy, etc., that you're comfortable with before even investing. Because once you're actually invested and then the market starts moving, we all know we should buy low, sell high, but with how markets move and how things move, we end up quite often doing the opposite of that if you really don't have your own personal investment plan. Yeah. So moving back to May, a little bit on your work or your professional experience. So May, as the head of client experience at StashAway, how does actually knowing investor psychology affect the decisions you make during your work at StashAway?
That's actually a very tricky question, right? Because I think at the end of the day, it's also very important to understand that the value of money means very different things to everyone. So essentially, what 100 ringgit means to me means something completely different to you or to anyone else, right? So it's very important to also, as Idam said, to kind of detach emotions and really try to have empathy and understand where the other party is coming from. So, someone can be making and just going mental over 100 ringgit that they lost. But then to you personally, it's but it's just 100 ringgit, it's what's the big deal? But you don't actually understand what the other individual potentially had to do to earn that 100 ringgit.
And just to pause right there, if you were to ask that very same question, 100 probably is the same reaction for everyone. But imagine for everyone in the room right now, what if instead of 100 ringgit that May mentioned, it was 1,000 ringgit or 10,000 ringgit or 100,000 ringgit,
Yeah. So I think it's very important to, never impose your views on anyone, and really try to step back and take a more macro and holistic view and really try to understand where the other person is coming from. because it's a very dangerous and a very, very thin line. The moment you start imposing your views on the other person, then miscommunication happens. It's going to start being a he said, she said thing. Basically it's going to be a chicken talking to a duck. So, I mean, obviously, when it's two people talking about money, first of all, it's very sensitive. But, you really have to understand and really, we try our best to never impose our views on the customers because, we are here to help you and we are here to ensure that, you essentially grow your wealth for the long term and you are able to build your portfolio with us and really understand what you're getting yourself into. So if I don't really know what else to say other than you really have to understand where the other person is coming from. You have to have empathy for that person, and really make sure that there is some sort of level of trust between you and who you're talking to.
Sure, and I totally understand, mate. That's not a easy line to walk on, really. Having both empathy, while at the same time, understanding that each one is really different. With that, I couldn't help laughing out loud though when you were talking about the chicken and the duck talking to one another. Marshall, really, any important lessons that you learned about the psychology of money and investing? If it involves any chickens or ducks, you get bonus points as well.
Okay, again, not really very psychological, but I'm not even sure that if that's a word. But just now May mentioned that we need to detach ourselves from emotions, right, when it comes to investing. But let's be frank, we are all humans, and most of us are not seasoned investor or traders. So most of the time, it's very hard for us to detach our emotions from investment, especially if you are investing a substantial amount of your money into this investment vehicle. Okay, so usually what I say to clients is, or to anyone, is actually to automate the whole process and never care. Don't look at it again, because I'm coming from a perspective that investing is just your secondary income, if there is. I find that a lot of people are actually overselling on the role of investment and also making money when you sleep, right? I'm the kind of person that you must focus on your own active income. Whatever that you're doing, you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, you're whoever you are, focus on your active income and invest that money into something passive. For example, StashAway. I think maybe that's a very interesting thing that you brought, that reminds me. So there's so many things that you can invest passively, because we are not seasoned investors, we are not seasoned traders. It's very, very hard for us to detach our emotions from our investment vehicle, especially when the amount is huge. So if you can't detach your investment vehicle, if you can't detach your emotions, right, find a way to invest and never look at it again. Focus your time on creating value in your full-time job or your business. That's my lesson that I find throughout these years.
Yeah, actually, Marshall, I 100% agree with you. The role of investing is essentially, personally, this is my view, investing is there to help you earn passive income on top of your active income. But I think there's just been a very somewhat toxic culture going on, where people are just actively saying, I make money in my sleep, you can do it too, and then that's when individual A starts comparing themselves to individual B. Why am I not at that level? We are the same age, I should be also earning that much, I should also be making that much, and then that's where we get all these, we hear all these
it's social media.
Yes, and then that's when we start hearing all these stories about people, saying, I lost so much money, this is a scam, you shouldn't be doing this. But unfortunately, that is where we are at currently in the world.
Yep.
Definitely. And I personally think investing should be as exciting as watching paint dry, really. And just automating that process definitely helps a lot as well. So just a couple of footnotes as well. This session is not sponsored by StashAway. Neither should any of this be taken as financial advice. It's just for financial education and information sharing purposes as well. So